Last year, I made a video talking about Sonic Mania on its 4th anniversary. During the video, I did mention how at the end of the final boss, Sonic gets swallowed up by a portal that'll take him to the game that came out after Mania. Well, that game was Sonic Forces. Now, with today being 5 years since Forces released, I can't really see a better time than now to really cover Sonic Forces and remember it since, it's 5 years, which is really hard to believe. Is Sonic Forces good, great, awesome, outstanding, amazing, or is it just another blunder in Sonic's long history? Let's find out as we remember Sonic Forces. Let's talk history, shall we? Sonic Forces was revealed on the same day as Sonic Mania at Sonic's big birthday bash. We got Mania being this new 2D classic Sonic game. Mania turned out to be great, but upon announcement, I didn't really care much about it. It looked good, but I knew, it's just a 2D Sonic game. No, I cared about the new 3D Sonic game coming from Sonic Team, and when it was shown, I was excited. Nothing against 2D Sonic, I love 2D Sonic, but I grew up more on the adventure games, and that's just where my nostalgia and heart lies. See, Sonic had been locked in the Wii U prison for the past few years, and the Wii U is not great. Especially the games Sonic got on the Wii U. The Lost World was just kind of meh, the Boom games are garbage, and I was just feeling kind of stagnant with the Blue Blur. Things seemed promising when these two games got announced, though. It was from the team that brought us Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations. It had that cool part in the trailer where a bunch of Death Egg robots are destroying a city. And whoa! What's classic Sonic doing here? He's teaming up with modern Sonic again! This is like Sonic Generations! I loved that game! What could possibly go wrong?
At last the roof goes on, and nothing can go wrong! Oh no, it all went wrong!
Sonic Forces released on November 7th of 2017 to very mixed reviews. It's honestly the most mixed I think I've seen the Sonic community on a game from the launch date. Obviously, nowadays a lot of fans are mixed on a lot of games like Unleashed or Lost World, but Forces was a weird one where a lot of people say, like, it's not horrible, but it's not great, and then there's people who say this is like the worst Sonic game of all time with Sonic 06. I've seen people who like Forces, and people who consider Forces one of the worst Sonic games ever. I wouldn't get the game until that Christmas, but I was nervous to play Forces. The Sonic games released before this were the Boom games, and while Rise of Lyric was an absolute train wreck. So finally on Christmas of 2017, I got this and Uncharted The Lost Legacy, and being the sad person that I am, the first thing I played was Sonic Forces. And I thought it was just okay. I didn't hate the game, I didn't like it, I just thought it was okay. I was more disappointed than anything, and this is the game from the people who brought us Colors and Generations, two universally loved games, so what happened here? Well, we gotta dive into the story first to explain. Our story begins with Eggman in a secret base talking about just how much he hates Sonic. However, now he has a new plan, a new creation that will surely defeat that hedgehog he hates so much and finally conquer the world. We're taken to Green Hill Zone where we get our first taste of gameplay with modern Sonic. Modern Sonic retains his boost gameplay from Unleashed, Colors, and Generations, and I know quite a few people dislike the boost gameplay, but I personally love it. Green Hill, though, is something you've seen before and likely will see again. In fact, it's in Frontiers, but it's different in Forces, you see. See, there's sand here. That's about it. After beating Green Hill Zone, we have a cutscene with Sonic rescuing Tails and some civilians from evil. With Sonic on the scene, though, some familiar faces appear.
Shadow, it's you? Zavok! Metal! Chaos!
And Meltman, with the power to melt.
Some classic foes and a new foe appear and just absolutely beat the piss out of Sonic. Tails pretty much does nothing to help, and I'll eventually get into why I hate how Tails is portrayed in a bit. But with Sonic defeated, we're greeted with a bit of Adobe Premiere text detailing that after Sonic's defeat, Eggman conquered almost all of the world. A small ragtag resistance group has been trying to keep the fight against the Good Doctor, but today is different, you see. Today, a new face joins the fight. And this is where the main gimmick of Sonic Forces comes in. See, we don't just play as modern Sonic in this game, you can actually make an avatar character as well. So, you know how people like to make the original fan characters in the early 2000s for Sonic or really anything. Well, finally, you can make your own fan character in Sonic Forces. Now, this was being done a lot when announced, but I love some customization in my game, and having the ability to make my own Sonic character was kind of neat. And this is something, again, it got memed on, but it's something I think Sega is smart to do because it's cool. People want to make their own Sonic character. Why would you not? I wasn't mad when this happened. I definitely joked about it, but the difference is I was doing it out of love, so it's totally different. Thankfully, though, Sonic Forces does the whole character customization quite well, as you get a ton of options to play with. You can choose your animal, which has different abilities depending on the animal, the color, what weapon you have, and more. So, for example, the cat lets you run into enemies more often without dying, the bird allows for better air control, the wolf can pick up better items, and so on. I normally just choose the cat when I play through Forces, but today I'm choosing the hedgehog. What kind of hedgehog, you may ask? Well, let's let the commander of the Resistance, Knuckles the Echidna, introduce him.
All except for this brave kid who survived the battle and made it here in
one piece.
Meet our newest recruit.
So yeah, I attempted to make Sonichu here. You can do a lot with the character creator, so if you want to make Sonichu, you can make Sonichu. If you want to make a Western-style cowboy hedgehog, then you can do that. Want to make a gamer to help the Resistance rise up? Well, in Sonic Forces, you can do just that. Forces gets a lot of criticism, and rightfully so, but I can't argue that the customization isn't great with a lot of the options it gives you. Now, this new recruit doesn't really have a name, but he's often just referred to as Buddy, so I'm just going to call him different stuff throughout the video. Next up, though, is something I do hate about Forces, and that's more of the cutscenes of Forces. But the thing is, it's not the cutscenes themselves, it's more the text dialogue cutscenes that are the most common in this game. I know Forces likely didn't have a huge budget, which is hilarious to think about since this was the 25th anniversary, but still, this feels super lazy. I wouldn't mind these scenes if they were, you know, not super abundant, but the thing is, they tell most of the story, and that's an issue. You know, they do have cutscenes where things happen in them, but when a lot of detail is being brought up in text cutscenes, just to set the level up, it's kind of boring. Also, the mouth movements for these parts are so bad that I just kind of love them. Just look at Vector the Crocodile's mouth here. It looks absolutely terrible. It is revealed, though, that Sonic is actually alive. He's being held in a prison, and he's been tortured for months.
My spy there says he's in a solitary confinement cell, and they've been torturing him for months. So
now it's up to Sonichu here to go to the chemical plant zone in order to find a ship in order to go rescue Sonic. Go, Sonichu! Zap to the extreme! The Avatar is what most people consider the best gameplay style in the game. I personally prefer the boost gameplay in modern Sonic, but that's not a knock against the Avatar. The Avatar is fascist like Sonic, but I like to think of his gameplay as a mix of, like, what if Sonic colors met Ratchet and Clank in a way? See, the Avatar, like Sonic, will be running, doing platforming and so on. The thing is that the Avatar has a weapon known as a Wisp Spawn. The Wisp Spawn is another thing you can customize, so you have at the start, you know, the Burst Wisp. And it's a bit of a flamethrower that can just mow down enemies, and you can use the Burst Wisp to make huge jumps once you find that Wisp in the level. Another example is the Laser Wisp. The Laser Wisp allows you to hit enemies with a laser with wide range, and you can do the Lightspeed Dash with it. And see, this is stuff that I think is cool, having moves from Sonic's moveset that you can add to other characters via the Wisp Spawn. It does help make some of the levels feel a bit different when you use different Wisp Spawns, and you're encouraged to experiment with them to find the one that's perfect for you. My favorite Wisp in the game has to be the Hover Wisp. The Hover Wisp allows you to shoot giant bursts of air at enemies, knocking them back. It also allows you to hover once you find a Wisp, and you can skip a large chunk of the level with it. It is kind of similar, I guess, to what you can do with Tails in the classic Sonic games in a way, because you can't really abuse it, because you will eventually run out of, time to fly, but it's still very helpful to, skip stuff. The Avatar is quite fun to play, but there's an overlying issue that applies to a lot of levels in this game that I'll dive into later. With the shuttle obtained, our heroes now plan to go and rescue Sonic. Meanwhile, in the city, we see Tails the Fox working on Omega the robot trying to fix him, but he's having no luck. Chaos appears behind Tails to attack him, and Tails cowers in fear. I hate this. Tails in SA1, and even a bit in SA2, fought Chaos, and had this whole arc of being, Sonic is a great hero, but, Tails also has to, step up to the mantle and be a great hero himself and not just rely on Sonic. and it's a really good little arc he has in those games. In Sonic Forces, however, he's just a bit of a little bitch. Well, classic Sonic shows up, bops Chaos Zero on the head, and saves Tails. Tails in shock thinks it's Sonic, the modern one, but no, this is Sonic from another dimension. This is the Sonic from Sonic Mania. You know, and after Sonic beat the final boss of Mania, he was transported here, so I have to talk about this elephant in the room. In Forces, classic Sonic is Sonic from another dimension. In Sonic Generations, though, classic Sonic is Sonic from the past. So, between games, they've changed it for no reason, and I'm not really sure why. I've seen an argument that they want them to be a separate character, so want to have like a more of a Mega Man thing going on, where you got like your Mega Man Classic, Mega Man X, or modern Classic Sonic, to have two separate little series for Sonic, but that would imply that Mania 2 is happening. It's been 5 years and I'm still waiting. Where is it, Sega?
Give me what I want!
Besides that, though, I do think this is a very dumb and pointless change, but Classic Sonic is the third playable character in this game, and honestly, Classic Sonic in Forces is dreadful to play. The classic Sonic gameplay is the same as before. Run fast and platform on a 2D plane until you reach the end of the level, which is great. Here's the issue. This is Sonic Forces. The physics for classic Sonic are just, they're off. It feels awkward, and it's odd because the physics in Sonic Mania feel great, and honestly, at times, I do think better than some of the original games. Classic Sonic in Forces doesn't even feel like the same classic Sonic in Generations. Maybe the physics were from a different dimension. I don't know. The physics in Sonic games are so important. Due to Sonic being such a fast game, if the physics even feel kind of off, things are going to fall apart, and that's what happens with Forces. Classic Sonic feels really awkward to control. He has a gimp jump. Going down hills feels really weird. Running up hills feels forced, and this is a large issue where Forces comes into play, I feel. The level design for Forces is very weird. A lot of Forces level design is really flat with a lot of, not much to do when it comes to branching pathways. Often Forces is just a straight line, and the game will often put speed boosters in places when the game is just kind of playing itself. Like, yeah, it's cool to watch on a YouTube video when you're going fast and all, but when the game plays itself, what's the point? Why wouldn't I just watch this on YouTube? I can play any other boost game, go fast, while also having a lot of fun control. Sonic Forces has a ton of this automation for modern Sonic and the Avatar. Classic Sonic avoids this, but the thing that most of all hurts the classic Sonic levels is the frankly boring and bad level design, and it's also hurt by the physics. Modern Sonic has levels that barely last longer than a minute 30 seconds, and a lot of these are just straight lines that are automated. However, I do think that when the levels are going and you're having a lot of fun, they are fun. But the thing is, modern Sonic runs into a reoccurring issue with a lot of modern Sonic games. I don't mind 2D platforming, it's fine, but when you have modern Sonic and even the Avatar doing 2D sections, I feel it loses a bit of identity from classic Sonic. There are differences, with modern Sonic having the boost and the Avatar having the whisk on and being, having, the character customization, but it just feels samey. Both Avatar and modern Sonic have the homing attack as well. 2D is not a bad thing. I honestly don't mind it in something like Generations, even though it is a bit samey there, the levels are at least fun to play, but in Forces it's not. That's the main issue. This game needed a lot more spice between the different playstyles to separate them and make them feel special. The only playstyle, in my opinion, that really kind of feels special is the Avatar, and that's just because you make the character and you have different whisk spawns to experiment with. Again, none of this has helped though because the levels in Forces are so short and they don't add anything. Forces reuses the same 4 to 5 level themes and nothing feels special, which is a major shame because I think Forces has a ton of potential with its level design. Take the next level where Sonic escapes from the Death Egg. Sonic is running out into space and grinding on rails around the Death Egg. You're rushing to beat these big machines from crushing them, and you're jumping from spaceship to spaceship. This is actually a pretty fun level, but what hurts it is the length. A good chunk of this level is automated, 2D, and it's short. When the levels get going and you can get into a groove, it's fun, but by the time you reach the groove, the level is already over. I'd like to describe Sonic Forces level design like McDonald's. It's a fast treat, but the after bits of finishing up leave you feeling empty. And I know the development for Forces wasn't pretty. A big focus is placed on catering to Sonic fans of the more modern style, even the classic era, and you know, you've got to cater to the casual gamer, which I can admire, you wanting to make people happy, but this attempt to make everyone happy never works, and it never will. And this also doesn't help, but due to the very short development time, they wanted to go to a new engine, the Hedgehog Engine 2, and most time was spent on that engine rather than making a good game. Regarding the classic era fans though, they literally had Sonic Mania come out a mere 3 months before Forces, and that was classic Sonic done right, while Forces Classic Sonic is just a slog to play. I know classic Sonic appeals to those who have nostalgic days for the Genesis, but again, we just had Mania. Development for classic Sonic could have been put on making a better overall product with modern Sonic and the Avatar. A lot of the level design wasn't done by those who did Colors and Generations, but by new talent, and while I'm sure they did their best at the time that they were given, since the dev time for Forces wasn't super long, it just leaves a lot to be desired. I've talked about the main 3 gameplay styles now, so I do want to dive a bit back more into the story. Sonic just keeps cruising thanks to the Avatar, and now plans to take out the Eggman base in Green Hill Zone. Here is the 4th gameplay style you'll use with Sonic and the Avatar teaming up. It's technically a different gameplay style, but you're more just swapping between the two in order to progress through the level. Here we're introduced to the double boost mechanic. Here's my favorite thing about this mechanic. So Sonic and the Avatar reach a certain point in the level, you know, do like a high five and then prepare for the double boost. You'll press the square button enough times during that time limit and the characters will boost. And you can fail this and the characters will just stumble and then boost. It's so lame that I honestly kind of love it. By beating this level, the Resistance will take a good chunk of the world back from Eggman. From here on out, the story doesn't do much. You're really just taking back certain points of the planet from Eggman. And there are things that are brought up, but it's often forgotten about after the next level, and most of what's brought up is brought up in the text cutscenes. However, there are parts where we engage with the new villain of this game, the mysterious and powerful Infinite. Okay, so with Infinite, I gotta start with one thing. Infinite is edgy the hedgy, and I love him. Infinite takes the edginess that I kind of love from the Adventure era games, and he has a theme done by Douglas Robb from the band Hoopstank. It's hilarious, but I love it. Infinite is the new villain for this game, and he beats up Sonic in the earlier cutscene to defeat him. We find out that Infinite is currently in the jungle fighting Silver the Hedgehog. The level where you're running to face them actually has a cool bit where Sonic fights a giant snake. It's a pretty neat set piece, but we meet Infinite after, once completing the level. Infinite possesses this weird dimension warping power that has defeated both Sonic and Silver now. We get into a fight with Infinite that's super easy, but has really good music, and I love the idea behind Infinite where he has these weird, trippy powers that Sonic just can't seem to figure out. The reason I like Infinite so much is he's the first Sonic character, probably since Shadow the Hedgehog, I'd argue, that I think is a somewhat decent threat to Sonic. He's beaten him once, and he can easily do it again. He's interesting, and when the game started, it hooked me on wanting to learn more about him. It's just a shame that the game does nothing with him, but more on that later. I should address the other elephant in the room here with Classic Sonic. Minus 2 cutscenes, Classic Sonic has basically no screen time with modern Sonic and the Avatar. He does eventually run into them when they meet, and we get this line here.
It's been generations since I seen you. You okay?
I won't lie and say that this didn't make me smile, but Classic Sonic adds basically nothing to the overall plot of the game. He does get a neat boss fight in Green Hill Zone with Eggman that starts out with the old buzzsaw from Sonic 1, but then turns into a fight with the Egg Dragoon from Sonic Unleashed. I wish Forces did more of this. Bring in old elements from Sonic games and tweak them a bit to make them feel a bit more fresh. That's something I liked about Mania a lot. Sonic Forces loves bringing back leveled things from previous games such as Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant Zone, and now mind you, I'm probably the biggest Chemical Plant Zone mark around, but even I hate that it was brought back in Forces. It's just nostalgia for the sake of nostalgia, and it doesn't work at all. Stuff like the Egg Dragoon fight is different though, because it's a spin on what an already existing idea was. Unfortunately, Forces just doesn't really do that. It's like, you want Chemical Plant Zone, but with a little bit of like ice-looking stuff? You want Green Hill Zone, but with sand? That doesn't really affect the gameplay? It doesn't work. The Egg Dragoon fight technically is a different spin because it's 2D and you're doing something different. Something, you know, like the random casino section in the jungle level for Classic Sonic's not good. This level's absolutely awful, and I struggle at it because Classic Sonic's Gimp Jump is hard to reach new platforms, and, you know, throwing in awful casino bumpers in a jungle level, it's dreadful. I don't really know where to put this level out in the script, just know that it sucks. I've been really negative for a bit, so I would like to discuss some of the positive forces for a little bit. First off, I originally was someone who wasn't wild about the music for Sonic Forces. I didn't think it was bad, just not memorable. A lot of Forces OSTs vocal tracks for the Avatar, and I often find vocal tracks for levels don't work, minus a few from Secret Rings. I can't focus on vocal lyrics much while playing a Sonic game because you're going so fast. It's just hard for me to really focus on it unless it's, like, really good. So I wrote the soundtrack off a lot when I first played the game. It was more when I listened to it while doing work that I discovered a love for the Forces soundtrack, and while it's far from my favorite Sonic OST, it does have some bangers.
Show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Pushing on through until the battle's won. No one's gonna get something to us. Into each other we put our trust. Standing united after the fight. It's a brand new day. We have turned the page. Never knew how much I needed somebody to help me this way. Oh,
Sonic Forces does have some pretty decent music. When it's good, it's pretty hype. However, there are some truly dreadful pieces of music for the classic Sonic stages that I just don't even know how to describe. They're laughably bad. Like, what actually happened here? This is horrible. It's funny bad to me, and it's not meant to be. Sonic music's meant to be, you know, pretty hype and catchy, even toe-tappy. This is just bad. Again, I started being negative here, but like, come on. Even Sonic at his worst often has good music, but this ain't it, Chief. I brought up the music for the level Aqua Road, and that's actually a pretty neat level. You're going down different paths of water to reach the end. While going down, you're hitting Motobugs in order to actually destroy them, and this is a pretty solid level, and I really enjoy it. I like the level Metropolis quite a lot. It's a lot of wide, but both the modern Sonic and Avatar versions of this level are kind of fun, and they're pretty quick. The classic Sonic version of this doesn't actually exist. Classic Sonic never goes here again. Another reason why I'm pretty sure Classic Sonic was not planned for this game for super long. The Avatar has a face-off with Infinite on this level. The game has this really short subplot that while the Eggman takeover was going on, Infinite destroyed a city that the Avatar was in, and the Avatar had a chance to take Infinite down, but he was too afraid, and Infinite just mocks him throughout the game. The Avatar does get the courage from Sonic to face off against Infinite, though. The level before the Infinite fight, which is the Avatar version of Metropolis, is actually really cool, as Infinite does this weird, trippy stuff to make these giant, perfect, chaos-looking Infinites appear. I wish the game had more of this weird, trippy stuff with Infinite. I think it would have made the level stand out a bit more and feel a lot more chaotic if you had Infinite doing his weird, you know, Phantom Ruby powers to the levels. I think it really would be cool. The fight with Infinite is super easy, though, by the way. If you have the Burst Wisp on, just shoot Infinite with the Flamethrower and he'll die in about 3 hits. It's that easy. Now, with the other Wisps, it's not as easy. Usually with, like, the Laser Wisp, it can be a bit harder. It's still not hard, though. So, you know, Sonic Forces is not a hard game. In fact, Sonic Forces is an incredibly easy game. You really won't die unless you just don't know what you're doing, or the occasional dickish platforming section, I'd argue. It's not hard, and while I don't think this game is good, it's a decent game for small kids if they would want to try Sonic for the first time. I mean, you could be a better person, let them play, you know, Mania or Colors first, but if you enjoy torture, I'm not gonna shame you. The modern Sonic version of this level is fun as well. It had a lot of fun moments where you're dodging giant missiles, running fast, and mowing down enemies while having to be careful to not accidentally fall off the platforms. And I really, you know, genuinely kind of enjoy this level. It's quick, and it's kind of what I wanted from a modern Sonic level. In Colors, this would be just, you know, kind of a decent level. You know, the third version of the level, kind of that you get in Colors, which is kind of like the mixed, like, short version, if that makes sense. In this game, though, it's one of the better levels, which kind of says a lot, I think. Again, Classic Sonic doesn't go to Metropolis. I'm pretty sure Classic Sonic was added very late in development because he just has no impact on the story at all. The final level of Metropolis as Sonic and the Avatar get sucked into null space. A space where there's nothing and our heroes will be stuck forever. And by forever, I mean about 20 seconds as they use the double boost to break out. I'm like 90% sure this was going to be its own level originally, but it got scrapped. It's just odd for this big thing to be introduced and then immediately ignored as you start the next level. We then get a duo level with Fist Bump, the main theme of the game, playing in the background. This is actually an alternative version of this, because there's Fist Bump and there's Fist Bump Null Space. I actually prefer this version of the song more. Fist Bump's super cheesy, but it does make this level feel kinda hype. Again, I do think when Forces it's good, it's kinda fun. There's fun platforming in this level. You can do a lot of like cool tricks to get around with the Wispons and stuff. It just doesn't have enough moments like this, I think, that last enough for me to feel more hype when playing Sonic Forces. Classic Sonic actually does go and visit the Death Egg for a level, and I did like parts of this level, as it has references to the Death Egg level from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, where you get sucked up by these lights that shoot you across the level. This level does have a big issue that the rest of the game really has, level design-wise, where you're just flooded with boost patches where you're going fast, but not doing anything that's really substantial. The last bits of forces are just kind of there. It's mainly the Resistance going straight up to Eggman and Infinite and, you know, taking the fight to them, and their cutscenes where they have, like, repeat. Like, clearly, they're supposed to be, like, the Avatar characters. They just threw the models in there, and they fight a bunch of shadows, and, you know, Infinites, and Zavox, and stuff like that. And those cutscenes are so bad. They look horrible, but the last few bits of forces, again, are just there. We get the final fight against Eggman and Infinite as well, and it's just there. The final fight with Infinite is incredibly lazy, so you fight Metal Sonic earlier in this game. And it's a fight. Not great, but you're just chasing Metal Sonic, homing attacking him on the enemies and stuff, you know, it's not a hard fight, and then you do beat him with the double boost. The final fight with Infinite is a literal reskin of that fight, and I wish I was joking, but it's the exact same fight. The fight starts out with just Sonic facing Infinite when you're chasing him and boosting up to catch up to him. You have to dodge the giant Phantom Ruby creations and then homing attack your way to hurt Infinite. It's a lot like the first Infinite fight in the jungle. This fight ends early, however, because there is a second phase. The second phase is the reskin of the Metal Sonic fight. Infinite actually uses the spinning attack that Metal Sonic used in his fight. It's just lazy, and it's a huge shame because Infinite possesses the Phantom Ruby, and I think, again, there's so much you could do with his weird, trippy powers for a cool boss fight, like fight the giant, you know, Infinite Perfect Chaos looking thing. I don't know, that'd be cool. Like, the thing that really bugs me the most about Forces is there's cutscenes earlier in the game where the Resistance is fighting, you know, Zavox, Shadows, Metal Sonics, Chaos. And, like, you could do different phases where you fight those. You could fight Zavok and Metal Sonic in the game. You know, I mean, you already fight Zavok and Metal Sonic in the game, so it wouldn't be hard to, you know, have those fights. But you never fight Shadow or Chaos. Which, funny enough, fans have actually made a fight in a mod where Chaos fights Classic Sonic. And it's really neat. And it's actually, if you're going to play Forces, I do recommend checking that mod out. It doesn't fix a lot of the issues Forces has, but it's there, and it's kind of cool, I think, for them to add new stuff like that. But again, the Infinite fight is not hard. You just have to be really careful to dodge his Phantom Ruby attacks. You know, you got to boost quite a bit, but you also have to have times where I think you don't boost because you want to dodge everything, but you're mostly going to be playing as modern Sonic in this fight. You're not really going to use the Avatar much because it is a boost fight where you want to catch up to him. Again, it is just the Metal Sonic fight all over again. It's not hard. Once beaten, though, Infinite then disappears and from this point on is never seen again. He does nothing in this game after that fight. He's such a wasted character that he really could have been something special, and it really makes me sad because I really want Sonic to have more villains. I think that's something the series actually does need, character-wise. I think we have enough heroes, but I miss having a nice threat to Sonic like we used to have with Shadow, and I think Infinite, probably popularity-wise, would never fit that role, but definitely could have, you know, helped fix that need, I think. I like just Eggman. Eggman's great, but I also like having other villains as well for Sonic to throw down with. After this, though, we get a truly putrid final level of Classic Sonic that's an auto-scroller. Now, I really just don't like auto-scrolling levels, especially ones that don't have anything really chasing you. But my main question is, why is there an auto-scroller in a Sonic game from 2017? I will defend games like Sonic 1 for the Master System because it was a Master System game. Does it suck there? Yeah, but it's also a Master System game. The endgame of Forces has some of the worst level design in the game, with super awkward jumps in the last Avatar level, an auto-scroll portion with Classic Sonic, and a very lame copy and paste job with the Infinite fight. The final boss itself isn't great either. Eggman takes the power of the Phantom Ruby in order to power his new greatest invention. You'll never guess the name of it. It's the Death Egg Robot! Yay, more pointless nostalgia. I love it. It also doesn't look anything like the Death Egg Robot. So the final fight is split into 3 portions. A Classic Sonic level that's just a copy and paste job of the Egg Dragoon fight, but this time the platforms disappear. You just hit the giant rock balls and you win. It's pretty simple. The Avatar portion is you on a big platform dodging missiles from the robot and hitting it with your Wispon until it reaches the phase where it'll destroy parts of the platform with its laser attack. You do have to be a bit careful on where you position on this platform, as that can make the jumps you have to do a bit more difficult. The Avatar jump isn't as awkward as the Classic Sonic jump, but it is still a little bit awkward on certain spaces you gotta make jumps through. This is possibly the most annoying phase of the fight, as it is really easy to overshoot your jump onto the next platform. If you have the Flamethrower Wispon, this fight is a cakewalk though, due to how much damage it can do. The final phase is a running boss akin to the final bosses of Colors and Lost World. This style of fight was cool in colors, but at this point, it's really run its course, pun not intended. You're just running along, dodging his lasers, again like in colors, until you get a close-up and you hit the robot with the 3 homing attacks of the 2 Sonics and the Avatar. This final boss is really boring, but it does have a really good theme that plays in the background. Once you've done enough damage, you'll do a triple boost that you actually do have to time right in order to win. So I'll give Sonic Forces this. I do kind of like that at least you have to do it there. Sonic Forces goes out with a whimper of a final boss, sadly. With Eggman defeated, the day is saved. Thanks to our heroes, the world has been restored by the Resistance, and people are free to run around giant loops and grind on rails in peace again. Classic Sonic returns to his dimension again now that the Phantom Ruby is destroyed. Forces tries to make this a really sad moment, and you know, it would be if Classic Sonic actually had an impact on the plot and, you know, interacted with the main cast. But besides Tails, he doesn't do any of that. I honestly have more of an emotional attachment to Vector the Crocodile at this point than Classic Sonic in this game. We do get a pretty great credits theme with the song called Light of Hope. It's really cheesy and it sounds like something you'd hear on a really kind of bad, you know, 80s show, but I actually really like Light of Hope a lot. The after credits scene is the Resistance shutting their base down. Sonic meets up again with the Avatar, wishing him well as he runs off to a new adventure. La la, la la, new venture, la la. They have a nice fist bump to match with the main theme of the game, which I like. The Avatar then zips off, ending the main campaign of Sonic Forces. But we're not done yet, though. Sonic Forces does have a free DLC episode, Episode Shadow. Episode Shadow has Shadow the Hedgehog going through levels before the main events of the game occur. It's basically Shadow playing through the level themes we've already had, meeting Infinite and more. It's a decent little DLC, and it's free, so I'll give Sonic Team credit here. It's pretty sweet to have. Honestly, the thing that I like the most about this DLC is that we get remixes of older songs like White Jungle from Sonic Adventure 2. Once you beat Episode Shadow, you can actually play as Shadow in all modern Sonic stages, and that's really cool. It almost makes me want to go back and replay the game as Shadow again. But then I remember how short the levels are, and I decided to just replay Generations instead. You have mods there. If you want to replay Generations with Shadow, you can get a mod. If I ever do go back and play the modern Sonic levels in this game, I do like to play them as Shadow. It's just really cool to have another playable character besides Sonic. I really hope that in the future we get a playable Shadow or Knuckles again. Tweak their gameplay a bit, and you have a winner there. Shadow does play exactly the same as modern Sonic. He has the boost, the homing attack, the stomp. The only real difference he has gameplay-wise is his homing attack can kind of string through large amounts of enemies. It actually does feel pretty satisfying when you do this. Again, this was a free DLC. It's nothing amazing, but I do appreciate the effort that was put here. It honestly makes me wish there was more of this in Sonic Forces. But besides that, that is Sonic Forces, and well, I just think it's meh. I really want to like Sonic Forces. I truly do. It's a game that I can see so much potential in. I love the boost formula, and when the game is fun, it is fun. I love the idea of the avatar, the customization, being able to make your own Sonic character is neat, and I like experimenting with the Wispons. Classic Sonic is great in Generations, and in Forces, he's just horrible. Some of the music is good in this game, and I enjoy playing as Shadow in the modern Sonic stages once you can. That's my main positive of Forces. It's a game that fundamentally is sound, it's not glitchy, but it's brought down by uninteresting levels, a very weird story that doesn't know what he wants to be from serious to comedic points, a villain who starts out interesting but then basically falls in the villain of the week category from a cartoon, music for the classic stages that sounds like something you'd hear from a parody YouTube channel, and physics that are from a bad Sonic fan game. Forces is an incredibly mixed bag, and that's me being generous, I feel. And the reason I think that is because Sonic Forces is all style and no substance, and I'd argue that style isn't even really that stylish. Sonic Forces was a game that really hurt my opinion on the Sonic franchise when I first played it. I loved Generations and Colors, and this looked like it would be more of that. I was excited after the schlock that was the Boom games. Forces came out, and any interest I really had in this franchise was gone for a long time. I played 06, I played Secret Rings, but they never made me lose my faith in Sonic like Forces, Boom, and Lost World did. Mind you, I did play 06 and Secret Rings as a kid, and my tastes clearly weren't the best back then, but as an adult, I've grown more tired of Sonic having mediocre games. It really felt like after Colors and Generations that they had learned their lesson. It stung even more after how great Mania turned out. It's a truly sad day when the Mania team can make a better 2D Sonic game than the actual Sonic team, and I don't know if that's due to burnout on Sonic Team's part or other things, but it's something that I really hope can get fixed. For years, I promised myself that I would be done with Sonic minus the classic games that I enjoyed, like the 2D games and the adventure games. I did finally return to Forces a few years later, and I have warmed up a bit to it now, but it's still nowhere near as bad as I think people consider it when it's compared to like a 06 or Rise of Lyric. It's just a really meh game that has no substance. It's not special. Again, it's like fast food when you play it. It's okay for the moment, but once you're done, you're just like, well, on to the next meal. It leaves no lasting impression on you besides meh. I want to love this game. I want Sonic Forces to be good, but it's just meh, and that honestly makes me sad. I want to love Sonic games. Will I laugh at the stupid stuff they do when it is bad? Yeah, of course. But I don't want Sonic to be bad. I want Sonic to be a good series that, in the future, I can still enjoy. And, my little cousins and, nephews can also still enjoy. I want Forces to make me feel the excitement I had playing the adventure games or Colors, and it just doesn't. Sonic Colors ran so Sonic Forces could trip and fall on its face. Interesting ideas aside, what's just a meh game, can't really be fixed. My interest in Sonic after this would really remain empty until the Sonic movie, funny enough. That movie, while just being okay, did kind of reignite my interest in the franchise, and with the second movie coming out, I got more interested in Sonic again. I went back and played some of the games I love, and now Sonic seems to be in a much better light. He's got a decent little film career going on, the IDW comics seem to be going well, and we're finally getting a new 3D Sonic game. No matter what happens, I know I'll always be a fan of Sonic for the memories it's brought me, even if I do find some of the games from his past to be a little piss poor. Thankfully, though, I'm filled with a little bit of hope now, as Sonic seems to be stepping into a new frontier. I wanted to make this video before Sonic Forces came out, because I feel hope now, and I'm really curious to see how when Frontiers, when I get to play it, will turn out. I am dating this video a bit by bringing this up, but it is kind of a before and after, I guess. So whenever I do eventually make a video on Frontiers, I guess this could be the part 1 to the part 2 for Frontiers, so we'll see how that goes. I want to thank you all for watching. This video has been a bit longer than I initially planned it to be, but it's something I really have wanted to do since I made that Mania video last year. I wanted to give Forces a fair shot again to see if I could like him more, and unfortunately, yeah, I just still think it's really meh. So yeah, I hope you join me eventually when I do Sonic Frontiers, which will kind of be like the part 2 of this, I guess, since I've made this video already. But besides that, I just want to say thank you all for watching. It is always greatly appreciated. I hope you all have a great day, and take care.